Madam Chairwoman. We can all agree that we want a cleaner environment, and I think we made tremendous strides in air and water and the environment over the years. However, the recent EPA has had a history of overreach and been misleading Congress and the American people in the process. Past administrators promulgated rules and rulemaking that were in many ways aspirational and not based on science. So as a result, as you all know, many have been overturned in court. But listen, I can't relate to you. The three of you, I didn't serve under you. But under Gina McCarthy, I do have firsthand knowledge, and thank you for coming here. And so we've had these exchanges in the committee before, because I want to focus on that, the most recent. So under her leadership, I think the EPA went rogue, and it deviated from these historic missions that you all were talking about, how the EPA rose to a different level with it. And as a result of that, we now have uncertainty and a decreased reliability of our electric grid. For example, under McCarthy's tenure with the EPA, we were told that policies regarding the electric grid would have little effect in the terms of the costs and capacity requirements. That's been proven to be untrue. On the very comment that she talked about was the mercury and air toxic rule. We were told in this committee that the EPA rule would only cost about 4.7 gigawatts of power would be lost across our grid. But the North American Electric Reliability Corporation, NERC, has found that 54 gigawatts of power have been lost, 11 times more than we were told by the EPA. And the impact on the ratepayers, it would be very small, was the quote that was given in testimony. But yet in Ohio, the rates went up 183% to the ratepayers. And on this board was an example given by the EPA back in 2014, said this would be the impact. Only 10 gigawatts of power would be lost under this rule. But yet at the end of the day, it was 172 gigawatts of power were lost as a result of this, a third of the capacity for our electric generation. We were told that the EPA takes into consideration, as you all did, the ramifications of the proposals on the impact on communities. But across America, under the Obama administration, 83,000 coal miners lost their job across America. These regulations that were put in effect based on ideology, not science, I think they caused uncertainty. The Samus plant is another example in Ohio. They met all the rules. $1.8 billion was invested. And then under this recent EPA, another rule was promulgated. As soon as that was done, they said they're done. They're retiring their plant after all that money was invested with it, and the taxpayers are going to have to take care of. Plants in Virginia and California were fined by the EPA for operating at the direction of FERC. FERC says you have to operate, and they did, and then they got turned around under the recent administration, the EPA, they were fined. So look, if they had just, in your words, if the EPA had just done its job, the power grid would not be at risk today in America. And President Trump and Rick Perry would not have to be putting forth their efforts to try to restore that balance with it, because the Department of Energy, the Institute for Energy Research, ISO New England, all have concluded our power grid is at risk, is unreliable. Therefore, I think Congress needs to have dependable, credible data coming from the EPA from which we can do it, not ideologically driven. And we need to keep focusing on carbon capture. But I understand today that many of you are unhappy with the direction of the President's EPA. But I think we're entitled to have incredible, reliable information from which to make a conclusion. And I would hope, Mr. Riley, if I can start with you, would you agree that we should have credible, dependable information from which we can set policy?
Yes, sir. I think all of us have said today that we believe in more transparency.
And Mr. Thomas, would you say, is there a way, when you were there at the administration, did you find, what magic did you have to be able to work collaboratively with DOE? So we didn't have, because back then we didn't have grid insecurity. How did you work with the DOE to make sure that our grid was reliable?
You know, we didn't spend much time working with DOE back in those days. I'll tell you what we did, though, across all the cabinet agencies. The way the president operated is you had a lot of interaction in a cabinet process. He operated it like I would if I was chairman of a company and was having my board of directors. That's the way he did. So there was an awful lot of communication back and forth about issues. I don't recall the grid and the reliability of the grid coming forward as an issue that we were trying to deal with.
Gentleman's time's expired. Chair now recognizes Mr. Tonko for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Representative or Administrator McCarthy, do you want to take some time to just respond before I move on with my questions?
Thank you. Just very quickly, you know, the mercury and air toxic standard was put in place because mercury is a neurotoxin to our kids, and it's found almost in every lake and stream in the United States of America where we have fish advisories. And we took a look at it, we estimated costs, we estimated benefits, and years later, now that it's done, we totally overestimated the costs and by orders of magnitude underestimated the benefits. We are in great shape in terms of mercury emissions. They have dropped 85%. And so I'm proud of that rule. I think we did it right. I don't think it has anything to do with any instability in the grid that I certainly have read about, but it should be something we celebrate because we have healthier kids today, we have fewer fish advisories, and we made a difference with that rule.